Hello, and welcome back to Podcast with a K. I'm your host, Karla with a K, and we are back after a year-long hiatus. It's been a long time, but I am joined in the virtual studio by lead singer of Arizona, Twitch partner, mustached marvel, Zachary Charles. Welcome,
That's
welcome.
probably one of the coolest intros I've gotten the past couple months. I like that one. That's good.
Thank you. And thank you for being here. It's
Thanks for
fitting.
having me.
Of course, it's fitting that you would be the guest to ring in the new podcast season, because almost exactly a year ago, on May 4th, we had you in the actual studio for a WECS exclusive at 90.1 FM in Connecticut.
Yeah, a lot has happened in that year, So it's definitely good to be moving again, that's for sure, We have since finished the album. We've released a couple singles, one more to follow actually, and the album's coming out and we're going on tour. So a lot has happened.
Exactly that. And tour starts fittingly on May 4th.
May 4th, yes, which is also Star Wars Day. So,
May the
um,
4th be with you.
yeah, as of right now, the plan is to. I made that one video of me making the custom Mandalorian suit, the 3D printing and painting and all that stuff. And I think through some jokes and some peer pressure and everything else, I think the idea is to wear that suit for the first day, because opening night of the tour is in Boston on May 4th. So, as we speak, I'm actually trying to crunch through making 3 custom sized suits of Mandalorian armor for me and the other guys, and hopefully, if all goes well between now and then, which is rapidly approaching, I can finish those and we can all walk out as Mandalorians on Star Wars Day for the first show.
It's perfect. It's the universe coming together in the best way possible. And I've got to say, you have actually come a long way just in this year. You were just getting into 3D printing at last we spoke. But specifically, I wanted to congratulate you because my Alexa no longer says Arizona. It finally
Wait,
says
wait, did they
Arizona.
fix that?
They fixed it, homie.
Wow, wow. 7 years in the making, and it got fixed. Wow, that's great.
Exactly. So again, congratulations on that. Spotify still has you under the R's in the general library, but, small steps.
Okay.
Work in progress.
Because we are Arizona, right? We are a single Arizona.
One,
right?
parenthetical, one, Arizona.
Which sounds like some kind of pasta dish, but it's all good.
That's perfect, actually. And, in that, that's not the only progress. Like you mentioned, new album is finally complete. Would you like to talk about that?
Yes. So the album, came together as like a mix of some songs that we had that didn't make it onto Asylum, and some other songs that got written over quarantine during COVID. And they all kind of got finished at the same time, because even the ones that have been lying around were just demos. They weren't finished. So we had an interesting bag of records to put together, and we had an interesting time doing it because it was all necessarily kind of over. It was over quarantine, so like we were locked in and we were kind of going through the motions. And now we all have hindsight, but at the time, when all that was first going on, it was really confusing and really weird for everybody, and very weird time to do an album. And I feel like the album kind of subtly reflects that. It's not necessarily like a story of, pre-COVID and now this is COVID. It's not like that. But, the way I've been liking to describe it is that it's sort of a collection of experiences and memories and things. It's, some songs are vignettes and memories of like a time kind of beforehand, and some of them are snapshots of the state of the mind being locked inside. It's a little weird. There were like 2 or 3 songs on the album that actually happened towards like the reopening of the world, where I had went out to LA and I sat down with some of my, homies who are like some of my favorite writers doing Asylum, that we got together for the first time in years and wrote 2 or 3 songs. So it's all the way through. It's before, during, and after. And I don't know that anyone would know that just listening to it, but um, in that context, I hope it sort of lends itself to the experience of listening to it in its entirety.
Of course, and now given that context, I'm sure anyone that's re-listening to the album will be able to, hear some stuff with fresh ears. But
Yeah.
it's interesting that you describe it as such, as being snapshots of time past, because your first album was called Gallery, which, it seems
Ah,
like you
oh,
have
look,
this like
hey,
storytelling arc
connecting
with your
some dots.
music.
Yeah. That's
I'm Charlie Day right now with the board and the red string.
yeah, that's kinda a good way to put it because, like, Gallery was that exactly, right? Like, Gallery, I think, was called that because, we had never done anything like this before. It was a brand new experience to us. It was obviously very jarring in some ways it was a brand new chapter of our life. So Gallery was a collection of different, emotions and snapshots and things like that. And then, releasing a couple singles and an EP and then like the second album, like all throughout time, they had their own sort of standalone things. But this, for the first time, I feel like is after everything we've been through, both as just regular people, like individually and collectively, as a group, the Arizona, the band, but also the world, like all the things that everybody kind of went through. Um, it was a whole lot. So when we were trying to figure out what to name this album, that's why it remained self-titled. We kept calling it Album 3 jokingly. And we would have called it that, but I feel like we just landed on just letting it be self-titled because there was no words for it. There really wasn't much we could say about it other than the fact that you know it is just that. It's like this is just our life the past at this point 4 years. And a lots happened since then. So it's still supposed to be a fun kind of journey. And the songs are jams. Like we really
Yeah.
enjoyed making them, and they feel good. And they just as songs to listen to, like, they're good, but they're fun songs, but, if we're talking about what the album is, yeah, it's kinda just a weird catalog of the past 4 years.
Right. And so earlier, y'all heard Moving On. That was our intro song. That was the first single released for the album. And I do want to make a note that I find it ever so entertaining that, this is meant to be a fun journey for you. And it seems like it has been, which, makes me happy for you endlessly. Um, the same way that album 3 will be self-titled Arizona out of a joke. It's funny that that's followed you again since 2016 in that you
Yeah.
made a joke and it accidentally
Mhm.
became successful, so the joke was on you.
That's still the thing that I feel like I struggle with talking about because people always look for these wild answers about, why Arizona and what does it all mean to you and, was the journey like getting Arizona together, like, was that this big ethereal thing? And it wasn't. I mean, it was entirely a joke to us. So the fact that it was a joke to us in the sense that we didn't really know what we were doing at the time, other than you know taking some time off from the other industries that we worked in. Whether it was broadcast or media or advertising, or like I was producing and songwriting other artists beforehand, and we were all friends that loved doing creative stuff together, but the idea that we would sit down and do it in a room by ourselves for ourselves and call ourselves the artist, like that was a stupid idea to us, but we did it because we thought it was going to be something that we'd call like our last hurrah, so to speak, because we were ready to just move on and start pursuing other chapters of our lives. But before we did, since we were in the creative industry for a long time, we wanted to sit down and maybe do the last thing just by ourselves and for ourselves. And so we did that. The name Arizona, just obviously, I say this all the time. It was because Nate was wearing a hat that said Arizona on it, and we made the joke that it would be kind of a hipster name for a band, and we'd space it out and make it, catchy or
Helvetica all the
whatever.
way.
Yeah, Helvetica. Yeah, it was just, it was a mix between like let's do what we do really. Let's craft the songs really well. We can design the brand really well. Like we can have fun doing what we do really well, but it was never something that we thought would be um known for anything. So that's why the particular name and like the logo and all this other stuff. Like we just we threw it together. So and then that same summer, like literally a couple months later, is when we started getting people reaching out to us and things like that, and just after kind of taking off on YouTube and Spotify
Yeah.
randomly. So
From the
uh,
hidden gem that was the Lady in Red cover to the viral Bad Blood cover on Chomek's channel, the Computer Nerd
yeah.
Zero One, who used to be, one of the biggest YouTubers in the game, to this.
Yeah,
You've done
yeah, and
headliners, you've opened for massive bands, you've done it all now.
yeah, and I think the best part about that journey is that I've been able to keep the same guys on board. I mean, the same, like Chomik, Chomik is now part of our crew, and he's like he's full time with us now, and all of our other friends who were kind of behind the scenes even back then and just part of the friend group, like they're all part of some part of our operation, some part of our life. Like they all work with us, and uh, it's I think that's been the most special thing is that we got to basically take it's entourage, dude.
Right.
It's literally entourage. We took the whole crew and we took them all the way here. I mean, it's not, it's not Maseratis and mansions per se, but at the end of the day, this whole journey could have easily, over this amount of time, um, could have easily just been a few of us or one or whatever it is, and we've been lucky to keep everybody with us. So I think
Brought the whole
I
squad
don't,
up.
yeah, I don't know that I would be able to do it honestly any other way. Like I don't know if I could do this with complete strangers. We've met new friends, I guess, along the way, but they've always been a degree separated from one of our friends. It was like our boys' boy that they brought on, or
Right.
somebody like that. It was never just some random thing. And we've had the opportunity to work with completely fresh, random people, and sometimes it's gone really well, and sometimes it didn't stick. But the core crew has always only been the homies. So
And honestly, as it should be, because y'all did meet when you were mad young and in very different spaces of your life. We talked a little bit about this last time you were on the
hmm
show. So it's really cool to see that that's panned out and continued to pan out because, in the time between Asylum and now, the question was, are they coming back?
well, yeah, right, yeah. I mean, me and all the guys. I mean, I think there's when I say all the guys, you got to remember like there's three of us in the band. There's like five of us in the company, and then there's uh like two or three that are like day to day with us, and then there's like a whole tour crew that I think equals up to like 14 guys, 15 guys, something like that, and everybody's all homies. Like we all have known each other for a long time before Arizona, each in different ways and at different points of our lives. But and some of us have met through this, and some who are like I said, our boy's boy or whatever. But a lot
Right.
of us were friends beforehand, and the same way that I say that I feel like I couldn't have gotten to this point without that having been the case. I think that's what kept us together through all the stuff that happened to both us in our lives individually and also the world since Asylum. It's been 4 years or whatever it's been, and I think that you don't survive a 4 year stint like that unless you're all just boys.
Right.
If you're all homies and like you don't really give yourself another option, not because you're like, well, I have to do this. It's just you're like, what else would I do? Like, these are my guys. Like, I don't know that there's a world in where I just say, all right, peace, see you guys later, and just go do something else. So it's like you maybe like we did during when COVID first started, you maybe take a couple months off.
Hmm.
And I don't mean vacation. I mean you take a couple months away from, let's get in the studio and work on, whatever, just to do family stuff or just to do personal stuff. Like, you have to catch up with your life, which I think was the upside to COVID, was that everything slowed down. If you could call it an upside, I mean, it
Right.
really wasn't much of an upside,
Silver
but
lining.
yeah, the silver lining, so to speak, was that things slowed down so much that we weren't on the road anymore. There wasn't a whole lot of press. There wasn't a whole lot of we just wasn't a lot going on anymore, so it gave us time to sort of recollect ourselves as people, for a couple months, maybe over that spring, summer before we, got back together to say, "Okay, you wanna start getting in again and really start finishing a lot of this stuff that we have here," whatever it is, and, um, yeah, that's a process that I feel like only happens with friends, like,
Yeah.
you only get to find your center and then come back to work, um without it being like a day ever passed at all. Like if you're homies, if you're not, I don't know that necessarily works that way. People find other things to do. So
And that does manifest in a couple of different things that I'll talk about. In your music specifically, I know you three all listen to very different music.
right.
You tend to lean more towards like house and electronica. I know Nate leans more towards like rock and such. So, like, and Dave as well. Like, everyone listens to their own thing, but you come together
hmm
and make a sound that is completely unique to you within the general music space, but also unique to you as artists.
Yeah, I think that also kind of comes from the fact that we are we're so close because like having three people, you know, be the creative vehicle to what ends up being a product for like a project or a band or anything like that. Um, like you usually have one sort of thing that pokes out more than the other, but because we're homies and because we're all so diverse, I feel like it's relatively natural that, whenever Nate does something or Dave does something or I do something to these songs, and because we're so collaborative, because we come from a producer songwriter world before this, and all this other stuff, like, you know, we work we work on it together so much, and all of us are so capable and so hands-on that I'm not gonna do something the way that Dave would do it or Nate would do it and vice versa. But at the end of the day, we take what the best of the other person's contributions are and we work them in together, and that does kind of make an interesting sound. And it changes over time, obviously,
Yeah,
but
of
just the
course.
idea that these elements can come from such different places and that we respect them enough to keep them and find the best way to put them in and just kind of make them jams, like it does
Yeah.
make kind of a weird sound, yeah.
You shed your skin when you walk into the studio, but you come out with a masterpiece.
It's all pop music, like that's what we come from. Like we all come from listening to different things, but we came from like making pop music. So like that's a technique and a skill set, I think. Like
Of course.
making things for a particular genre, whether or not you love that genre or listen to it or not. There are things that work and things that don't work, or I don't know how to say that because a lot of it's subjective. But there are common techniques, and
There's
then
formulas.
yeah, there's formulas that are widely just accepted. And so like when you know those and you master those to a point where you can sort of do it with your eyes closed, and like you you get comfortable enough to begin bending it in your own way.
Yeah.
So we come from a world we're just grinding our faces against that stone all day, with
Yeah.
a million other projects that weren't ours. I feel like when it comes down to making our own stuff, we can take what's, close to us, but then use some of those formulas and it comes out, sort of the way it does.
Yeah, it's the way Michelangelo did not want to be a painter, and yet we still ended up with the Sistine Chapel, right?
Yeah, well, which is weird because a lot of guys like Michelangelo throughout history, you know what I mean? And you only know the Michelangelos. And so it's
Yeah,
it's impossible to say, right? So for example, I mean, here we are talking about it in the sense that like, we had a little bit of a moment, 2016, 2017, and we've done some cool stuff since then or whatever. But it's such a small blip, right? Like who's to say who you're gonna know in that span of time where we know Michelangelo and things like that, where especially things are not necessarily as permanent anymore. So that just brings me back to all that just to say that, I think that the people that feel the pressure from releasing things and needing to release stuff constantly, and how do they top their last thing or whatever it is, because that's obviously been a big topic for us. It's
yeah.
like where the hell have you guys been? Like, you're not doing anything, you don't care, blah blah. There's
Like
nothing to do
behind
with
the
that.
scenes.
And well, just behind the scenes, it just comes from the context of knowing that, like, we've never thought that way. Like, we've never felt the pressure of trying to be the best or be, notable or anything like that. Like, we've always just done this because it was our way of just, being homies and doing things that we love to do. It was just a side, sort of or rather a byproduct that it's given us a little bit of success. But with perspective, you realize that, I mean, how long does that even last? And so, I mean, in a perfect world, a million years for Michelangelo, right? But in
Right.
but in an equally perfect world, we have a great 5, 10 years, and then that's the end of it. So, which without expectations, I feel like is where you're really limitless, where you can do
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Plan for tomorrow, live for today.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And as mentioned, behind the scenes, like, I mean, even if people follow you on Twitch, like you would do production streams. Like it's not like these were years just wasted, like, band put on the back burner. Like y'all have been working on the album. Y'all have been working on like things that take time. And it's
Yeah,
meticulous to the point where you streamed for 3 hours working on the same 2 bar loop, just trying to get the drum beat right.
yeah, that is my personal hell. Yeah, that is it.
Right. But like you
Um,
said, nose to the grindstone because that's what production takes.
yeah, there was just a lot of factors that went into it. We switched. we switched teams, label side, basically right before or as COVID was happening, and then COVID happened, and then as we signed on to the new team, at Fueled by Ramen, we had to get sort of situated there, and we had to like kind of go through the A&R process again of just kind of getting everybody familiar with the demos and the records that were there, and maybe getting some fresh ears and input, and then finding some holes in the project to fill, see what we had to maybe do more of or whatever. And then I mean that was its own whole project. And then I mean when we physically crossed the finish line of an album, that's still anywhere between 3 and 6 months out
Yeah.
from actually the world knowing about it or being released, because then that's when all the marketing and all the other planning and stuff goes into place, and they really
Random
want to.
podcast episodes.
I mean, they really want time to
Yeah.
they really want time to put the
Build the
to
hype.
put the most into, yeah, and the most into it so they get the most out of it. So, so it's just a tricky process that even I mean, we could, I guess, accelerate that in some ways, but for the most part, you try to be respectful of the partners that you work with, the agency and labeling and things like that, and you try to trust their direction, and also our own. You have to make your own calls too sometimes. So they do take a little while on the outside, and we're not the most popular and or frequent people on social media either. So we don't necessarily talk about, oh, this was my Monday today, just so you guys know. So I
Right.
understand how it could have been a little frustrating, but thankfully it's all behind us. And and the first week of tour or second week of tour or something like that, the album comes out. I think it's May 12th or 11th or 12th. I think it's 12th.
Very
I
exciting.
should I should know that. I don't know. I think it's the 12th.
It'll be in the description down below.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Perfect. Captions save us all. So,
Rate 5 stars,
the
like and comment, subscribe.
yeah, yeah. Um, and uh, and then yeah, going on this tour with Quinn is gonna be sick. And then whatever the rest of the year holds is probably gonna be a lot like what you see now. More shows and more music, and more singles after the album. We just want
Yeah.
to keep the ball rolling.
Yeah, and you've made a really, I think, impactful return to, at as you mentioned, social media at the very least, through reminding the world that album's done. There's still stuff to be done, and at the end of the day, you are individuals. And we saw a little bit of that in your particular interest with Dash of David, Nate's ice cream reviews, and your making that.
Yeah. I think that was kind of our way of kind of warming up the muscle, so to speak. I knew going into some of that stuff, like I knew that it wasn't going to be the most compelling content for a lot of people that didn't necessarily even remember they were following us in the first place, or people that were really just wanting to know more about the music and the album and things like that. But like I said, we're not social media people, so you know, I think the most natural thing when we brought Chomic on board to help us out with stuff like that, was like, let's just get people in their natural environments. It'll help them, get a little bit more used to dealing with social media and learning that formula and whatnot. And it'll also at the same time kind of have the secondary effect of people getting to see a little bit more of who we are as people outside of just the band, for those who are gonna care,
Right.
and it was fun, So I think we just kind of started there, and it's naturally been evolving slowly, but yeah, I mean, I can't speak for the other guys, but making that for me was an awesome little series that I got to show everybody all the stupid dad stuff that I do around the house, just in my workshop and with table saws and 3D printing and stuff
Yeah.
like that,
The
and
glasses and the mustache are not just props.
yeah, exactly. Like that's safety equipment. You know what I'm saying? It's safety equipment.
The
They're
mustache is safety equipment.
prerequisites.
Right.
That's absolutely right. Yeah, 100%. Um so yeah, I mean, we definitely had time to we definitely had time to like learn that staying in touch with people via social media was an important thing to do. And not everybody's always gonna love everything you do, but it just doesn't matter. We honestly, we don't care either.
Yeah.
It's a matter of just doing what we do.
And at the end of the day, I think that's who your audience is, right? The ones that stick with you. Like, there's the ones who are just here for the music. They're the ones who are just here for the Spotify drop dates. But for the people who do place that emphasis on knowing who the artist is, I think that this type of content was, it did its job in connecting to said audience. And you could see, I think, the attitude shift in the comments just simply from, oh, you're back. Oh, new music to, oh, where's the new making that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm like I said, I'm glad people enjoyed some of that stuff, and there's also some more music centric stuff that we've done as well. Like I've also really particularly had a fun time doing all the covers. Like we did like the Ice Spice, like the Pink Pantheress cover.
Right.
I'm working on a Taylor Swift one right now. Like those are a lot of fun too, and it gives people a little bit more of an insight into like the music making process, but they also get some cool stuff to listen to afterwards.
Right.
Haven't figured out exactly where I'm gonna take that yet because people like have been asking like for the full covers and they just don't exist. Like I would just do a verse chorus and that's it.
Yeah.
Um, but that could be fun too. Just
Yeah.
doing like actual full length covers and doing little EPs of nothing but like um, like Kids Bop Arizona edition. Where we just take the dopest songs of
Right.
like these couple weeks and just do Arizona versions of them. You know what I mean? So
And like I said, it would be fitting because that's kind of what was ingrained in whenever this was first, I mean, essentially just an artist project, right? You would put out your couple of tracks, we had People Crying Every Night, we had Let Me Touch Your Fire, but we also had Lady in Red and Bad Blood, right? Like
right.
that's always been, I think, very present in your music, kind of that nod to whatever pop music is relevant, I guess, to the band sound.
Yeah, I still want to do like an '80s EP, like a
Oh,
whole EP just full enough of
please.
'80s covers. That would be sick.
You have to do Message in a Bottle because that song was so, for such a long time, a part of the everyday.
Well, you saw that we did that one, right?
Yeah,
Do you
but
not know? Yeah. Oh, you mean to put it on the EP? Yeah.
yeah,
Like we would definitely finish that one. Lady in Red could go on it. Like I have another couple that I started that never really finished. Like they're just fun.
right,
Like they're just great songs. They're easy to just absolutely crush, and like they're just so straightforward. It's the '80s, and like
exactly.
and they're just bangers. So that'll be a lot of fun. But until then, I'm just happy that our own album is finally done and coming out, and can't wait to see what people think of that. So.
Hell yeah. And I mean, the people are excited. Speaking of said album, we have reached the halfway point of the podcast. So let's take a quick music break. We will listen to the second single, Dark Skies. Would you like to say anything about it?
Oh, Dark Skies is a lot of fun. That was another kind of upbeat record, sort of like an '80s song, right? Like it's kind
Yeah.
of a weird song lyrically, but it's like super upbeat and we also had a fun time shooting the visualizer for that. It was just all around. I'm glad we made that one work because that was before this album. That one didn't make it onto Asylum, so I'm happy it found a home here.
So that was Dark Skies by Arizona. Like you said, the visualizer, super sick. The song also super sick. It's very modern synthwave means subtle rock, like it's got a very driving sound to match the apocalyptic lyrics.
Yeah, a little policey, which I feel like some of Asylum was. I mean, that was made during that era, like a lot of the police type sounds like that we did, like we kept I think some of that for that particular song on this album. We tried doing it a couple different ways, didn't really feel right in other ways, so we kept it kind of the way it was. Um, I think it's one of my I don't want to say it's hard to have favorites, right? But like I really do like Dark Skies.
It's up there.
Yeah, yeah,
With Dark Skies, we also got the reveal of the album cover, I believe, with the mirrors. And
yeah.
it's a good nod to the music video for Moving On. You actually went into the deserts of
It was the
Arizona.
same week. It was the same week. We basically shot all of those assets like during the same week, just road tripping through the desert in Arizona. Because we felt like that would be like the best sort of landscape to portray sort of what the creative direction was for I guess the visuals for the album.
And also your band is indeed called Arizona, even though none of you are from Arizona.
Yeah, I had never even been to Arizona when we started the band. And now I'm glad I have because it's an amazing,
Yeah,
amazing place, both to play shows and also just to go hang. But
fits the sound, truly.
yeah, it's really weird that we didn't think about that. Like I said, it was just a stupid, it was just a word that was on a hat. And then when Dave, like Dave does, goes and just extrapolates things as hard as he just reaches as hard as he can. Um, like he started looking into like photos he had taken from Arizona, like on one of his trips to Arizona, and all these crazy landscapes, and it just felt right. It just felt epic and awesome and like mysterious and crazy and ancient. And we were like, yo, this is dope. Like this is some crazy stuff. So um so we have actually always kind of had a little bit of a visual fondness, I think, of what Arizona is, like all the history and the landscapes and everything there. So it made sense to us that we would maybe kind of return to what was familiar and what was at the core of everything when we started to think about this album. But yeah, lots of crazy photo shoots, lots of walking in the desert, lots of climbing up things. I mean,
Definitely
it
got your
was
steps in,
pretty nuts. Definitely got my steps in. Yeah. The It was freezing cold. It was like November, December.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, not as bad as the East Coast, but I just mean,
Right.
like you just
It
don't know
was
what to
cold.
expect really. But yeah, it was cold.
Yeah. I was in Arizona, I think in February, and if the sun's out, you're all right. As soon as the sun is down, you're
That's it.
it's over. You're a
That's
popsicle.
it. Yeah, basically.
Did you get to do any sightseeing for yourself to connect with Arizona, or was it all
Um,
work?
I mean, being on the road and passing through Arizona so much, we are pretty familiar with Arizona. We get to connect with Arizona, so to speak, quite a bit. But while we were there, it was pretty nonstop. But that being said, going where we went and doing what we were doing, I feel like was all really special experiences. We worked with Navajo Nation to shoot this big moving on music video. Um, the landscape art was insane, and their whole crew was great. And like I said, Navajo Nation kind of helped us sort of procure this whole experience and this whole thing that made it possible for us to go do that. And that was awesome working with them and being on location there, and then also traveling to the other locations, like where we shot the album cover uh in the Petrified Forest, which is like this
Wow.
200 million year old piece of land that at once, I guess, was like this crazy prehistoric forest, or just
Yeah.
this patch of trees and greenery and other things like that that I guess in theory, I think one of the ideas I believe is that it maybe some volcano or some kind of volcanic activity settled on it, and it basically preserved it and just petrified it over time. And so all these rocks that you go and see, you can pick up like these brittle kind of chunky rocks, like they are logs or pieces of bark and wood. 200 million years old, super crazy protected. We
Yeah.
were like, we basically had to have like a chaperone or like liaison with us the whole time, like a park ranger, like an armed national park ranger, all this crazy stuff in these parks, but they're all awesome people. And they're just like, we're happy you're doing this, and we're happy to show you around. And that was an awesome experience seeing
Yeah.
that.
And it also shines
Cathe-
a light on that landscape.
yeah, Cathedral Rock was another spot we went to. I mean, there's just so many great, amazing attractions in Arizona to go see landscape wise, and we took advantage of some of them while we were there to get some cool shots and things like that and do stuff. And just so much history. So yeah, it's always a pleasure to work in Arizona. Same way, it's always a pleasure to go play shows in Arizona because the people in Arizona are just so great.
Right. Yeah, and it is really cool to see that you guys are finding that that new element, because your aesthetic has always been kind of like techie, kind of glitchy, kind of, like you
Mm,
said, mysterious.
hmm
So with this album, everything kind of seems more grounded in nature. The teaser for the newest single, you're, in a river. So is there anything to be said for
Um,
why?
That's a good question. I still think there's gonna be a little bit of our hallmarks in there. Like, I think, I could say it in the fancy way, but it's just the way that we like to After Effects, right? It's just the thing that we like. But, like the glitchiness and the other stuff. But, the I I don't know that we thought about it that much, but there was probably a little bit of thought into that, and I think maybe it's supposed to feel like what we feel like this year is for us, which is, it's just a very, man, I don't know, I don't really know the word. It's
It feels
solemn might be weird. I
yeah.
don't know. It's just very do or die for us right now, which is like, we're either gonna we're either gonna pony up and just really get right back head first into it, um or there's no other way. Like, this is a weird new chapter for everybody, and for the world, and just
Yeah.
everything.
It's kind of a reintroduction of everything.
Yeah, and maybe not as we speak today, but if you look at the past year or two, like, it's been a lot, coming back from what everybody went through. So, like, for us to have to get back on the horse, so to speak, I think it was kind of like coming back to our roots. So
Yes. That is
I remember
exactly
one
the
of the
phrase I was thinking
first,
of.
yeah, like one of the first, I think one of the first pictures we uploaded as like a banner on SoundCloud or something was the three of us looking out over into the Arizona landscape. And it,
Mhm.
it was a picture that actually had Dave looking over the Arizona landscape. But then we took pictures of us on Seamless and then photoshopped ourselves into it.
Sheesh.
Just to get like the composition we wanted. But
The
we
truth finally comes
either
out.
either way, like
Yeah.
some of the original things we did really leaned on, kind of, uh like breaking down and affecting and destroying a lot of these weird shots and compositions of the Arizona landscape.
Mhm.
So, so in some ways, I feel like going there and doing it and meeting it in person and really, really focusing on a lot of that for, I guess the visual language, so to speak, of this album makes sense to us.
Of course. And like you said, because these albums all are kind of a look in via snapshot to what's happening at the time. Again, it's so cool to hear how everything comes full circle in that this is paying homage to that, and that even that was always just based on taking a certain aesthetic and kind of publishing it to the world as it tied to you.
Yeah, just twisting it in a way that we felt was cool, just maybe meant something, not
Yeah.
to us, and not in general, and not, whatever, but something that was a certain way, either looked, because this applies not just to the art or the whatever, but I feel like it's also the same way we approach making our music. It's like you design and create and make things that either feel or look or sound a certain way that will mean something to somebody. Somebody will make it mean something to them. It's
Yeah.
it's it has a certain power to evoke something. It's not supposed to be anything specific. It just feels like something, and
Yeah.
it's meant to be something that people will be able to take and make their own. I feel like that's kind of what we do. Because we make our stuff our own in our own ways as well.
Yeah.
But that's often very different than what other people read into it or see it or whatever. And I feel like that's always been, at least in my experience, like that's always been the coolest type of art or the coolest type of creation, which is it's not shoving something in your face and saying, this is what this is, this is what this means, and has a particular story. Because that stuff is cool too. You see a weird sculpture or a painting or something, and like, oh, this is a rendition or something that's, it's a take or a political stance on the, whatever it is, the Battle of
Right.
Kosovo in 14. It's just like, or
Yeah.
how it applies to modern day. It's just all that
Uh-huh.
all that stuff, like that's cool, and I really think that there's something to be said about the expression behind that type of stuff. But I've always thought about the way that we create as less, less aimed than that. It's not
Mhm.
it's less directed than that. We make stuff that I feel like it's supposed to be taken at face value at first, and then as it sinks in, you can kind of make it your own. It's not supposed to be something, you
Yeah,
know.
it's legacy by chance.
Yeah, I just really want people to know that, that there is not one meaning behind something that we do, whether it's visually or sonically or whatever it is. It's like it's supposed to be yours. We
Right.
made it as ours. It just gets published into the world. It'll always be what it is to me. But if you
Right.
get a hold of it, then do what you want with it. Make it something that serves you the way you need it.
So as that meme of Charlie Day with all the red string, turns out all the red string is just a self-portrait of Charlie Day at the
Yeah,
end of the scene.
basically. Right. Yep.
I will
Right.
say that energy for any new fans of the band that, just now became fans because they just now heard the singles. This energy has always been there from the opening track of the first album, Annie, in that people would ask, "Who is Annie?" And the response is always like, "We're all Annie."
We are all Annie. Yeah, that was the joking response to that. Yeah, because like there is no. I mean, Annie is, you know, uh, Annie is to me what will be different to you and to everything else. I mean, it's again, I wish I could give people more direct answers, but it's just not the way that we create or write or do
No, and
things.
it doesn't need to be. Honestly, the cryptic nature of y'all's responses to any inquiry into the why is more so answered by the lack of an answer, right? Like you said, it's meant to mean something to you, the same way that we look at a Michelangelo painting and we're like, "Wow, beautiful. This symbolizes this, this, and that." And meanwhile, Michelangelo was thinking, "Man, I hate this. I hate my life. I hate painting." You know,
Yeah,
like
maybe you just never know, and that's the. I guess sometimes you do. Sometimes you can get it from the horse's mouth, but in the event that you don't, then I think that's the beauty of it is that it was something to somebody, but it's bigger than who they are and what it was to them.
mhm,
You know, it's the painter's hand on the brush to the canvas that makes the piece, but the piece at the end of the day will be larger than that person always. Because it's something that is viewed. Ultimately, it's garbage.
right,
It's garbage thrown on top of other garbage, and that's it. I mean, you mix oils and chemicals and water and all this other stuff, and you get like paint. You know what I mean?
right.
And you rip up a bunch of trees and you stamp it down and go through the process of making it a canvas or paper or what have you. Depending on what historical period we're talking about, but you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you just get it's all
Yeah.
just garbage. It's all just space garbage. It's all just garbage from the earth. We put
Yeah.
together and we make meaning out of it.
It's all just a person's
Um,
way to say, "I was here."
that's it. That's exactly it. And the thing is they won't be forever, and
No.
sometimes those things outlast them. And so instead of viewing art as a way to say, I was here or connecting the art to a particular person,
Yeah.
it's just something you find. The same way you look down sometimes and you find a little shiny rock or you find a coin or something and or a ring on the side of the road, you pick it up. It has I guess it has its own history and the way it came to be where it is, but that doesn't matter. It's just your lucky little rock,
Yeah.
you know?
It means something entirely
And
different to the new finder.
you make it yours and you don't ever think twice about it. And so I feel like that's how people should treat,
Yeah.
art and things like that. You make it yours and you don't have to think twice about where it came from or what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed
Right.
to be anything. It's a lucky rock. You know what I mean? You picked it up. That's
Just
it.
is. Yeah, rather poetic. I did want to make a note that you are very historically minded, and in previous conversations, this has come
Yep.
up. I actually think we might have talked about it a little bit last time you were on the show, but
Yeah,
had you
maybe.
not pursued Arizona and had it not, blown up to what it is now, what would you have been doing?
Well, originally, basically, my whole life, I wanted to be a naval aviator. I wanted to be a pilot in the Navy. Wanted to be a fighter pilot, and then that kind of went out the window at a certain point, so I had to stop pursuing that. And then that's kind of when I was just drifting around a couple years doing music, and got into producing for other people, and because music was always a hobby of mine. Like I always liked music, but it was never like oh, I'm going to do it for, like, a living or anything. But um, after I kind of got burnt out on doing that, when I was like, cool, it's been some years, I've been producing and writing and whatnot, and I think I'm good, I really got to figure out, I've lived all over the world. I've done a bunch of stuff, like I got to figure out what it is I want to do with the next part of my life as I stare down the back half of my 20s. And this was then, obviously.
Right.
And Arizona was like an in between. Like, I know we have our fun project we're going to do, but what am I going to do after the summer's over, you know? And it was either going to be realistically, I thought I was going to either maybe go to the police academy, because I have a couple really good friends of mine, who've done that, and they really wanted me to do it, and so I was either gonna do that, um, or I was gonna go to school to become a history teacher because I love history, and teachers are important, and there are not enough good ones. So,
Yeah.
uh, rather, I should say, uh, rather I should say, kids and the next generation is important, and there are not enough good teachers. So,
Right.
um, and history, I think, is one of the most important things
Yeah.
that you could teach. Um, we don't get where we're gonna go without either
Knowing how we got here.
knowing or ignoring how we got here. Those both produce the results of where we're gonna get. So it's like, it's an important thing to pay attention to. So yeah, but I love history.
100%. And you're very much the type of person that takes an interest into something and, deep dives into it because, for example, your weekend project with 3D printing became 3 custom
Yep.
fitted Mandalorian suits for the next show.
Yeah, it's a gift and a curse. You learn a lot, but it swallows your life sometimes. Yeah, you definitely fill your plate up pretty quick.
Right. So as we're living for today, do you have plans for tomorrow? Like, is there anything that you want to see the band do? Like you said, you've lived all over the world. Y'all have done a lot. What are some bucket list items left to accomplish?
Um, that's a great question because I feel like I may have had an answer for you at some point in my life. At this point in my life, I have learned to lower my expectations so much. Not in the sense that I don't. I haven't lowered any of my standards or my goals or things like that. But it's my expectations and how they apply to the particular things that I put in. What I get out versus what I put in, that's where I've lowered my expectations. So it's tough to have a bucket list when you feel that way about the world because
Sure.
it becomes less about, what I have to do before I die, and it becomes more about what did I get to do so far? What have I gotten to do so far? What am I getting to do now? It becomes more of a present mindset than a future mindset, because my goals and my aims are a lot different than my expectations. Like, I'm gonna shoot really high always. I think that's important. We all should.
Yeah.
If you wanna make $1 million this year, your goal should be to make 20 million this year. You know what
Right.
I mean?
You got
And
to
that was
have
actually
ambition to reach
one
success.
of the best pieces of advice I was ever given. If you want to make $1 million this year, write on a piece of paper your goal this year is to make $20 million, and you'll probably net out somewhere in between. That's the life hack. And so, like, if it were only that easy. I just mean to say that, you if you manage your expectations
Yeah.
and you understand your expectations, but you're still not afraid to go really hard and push yourself, like, that's where you find yourself netting the highest. So for me, I really would love to see, realistically speaking, what I'd love to see, if we're talking about my goals now, I'd love to see like a full Europe and or Asia tour for Arizona. That's something we haven't gotten to do just yet. We did a European tour, but
Yeah.
a bigger one would be great, and we've never done Asia. That would be awesome. A little selfishly, just because of the food for me, you know what I'm saying? I just, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you beat that, right? But
Exactly. Good point.
same thing with South America. Like, every time we've been, food for me is a huge selling point. Food for me is a huge selling point.
Uh-huh.
You want me to go somewhere? Tell me the food is crazy, and I'll drop what I'm doing and go. So,
Right.
um, but yeah, more traveling and more opportunities to sort of play and do things like that, across different parts of the world we haven't been to yet. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Um, I can't really say much else, because you got to be careful what you wish for.
Right.
Sometimes you think you want something, and then it comes, and you're like, "Damn!" You know what I mean? Like it's a lot. For
Which is
example, if I had
exactly what the lyrics to the new single, teaser say.
yeah, it's just so real. Like if I had I didn't because it's not the type of person I was, but if I was starting Arizona, like, man, I really wish this just blows up and takes off, and oh man, that kid would have gotten slapped in the face with the reality of what the day to day life of this is, which is very trying. It's very difficult. It's a lot of work. It's so much responsibility. It's a level of responsibility that most people at that age aren't ready for. And so it's I'm glad I didn't say that, and I'm glad I just took it as it came, and I've treated it like a learning experience. I've kept my head on my shoulders, but that's why I'm not like, oh, I really want to do this. I really wish, like, you know what I mean. It's just
Yeah.
like, you're asking for it at that point. Take what life gets you. Shoot really high for the things you want.
Yeah.
Overshoot, and you'll probably land somewhere in the middle. And if you're happy as a person being somebody that can appreciate what's in front of you, then I mean, I feel like you never needed a bucket list.
Yeah.
It gets completed on its own, and you were never a part of it. So
Reach for the stars, shoot for the moon, right?
that's right. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Brazil will be delighted to hear that you wanna go to South America, I'm sure.
Hoo-wee, dude. Yeah, man. I mean, the picanha alone, dude. Like, I, I'm itching. I'm itching to get
Listen,
some more foods. Just from other parts of the globe.
yeah.
Some snacks. You know what I mean? Unlocked snacks unlocked.
Snacks and, like, new flavors discovered.
That's that's what I'm saying, dude.
And, it won't be any trouble for you getting around because you do speak a little bit of a lot of languages, so
Yeah,
the
that's a good
world
way to
is
put it.
truly your
A little
oyster.
bit of a lot of languages. Yeah, it's a good way to put it. Not really fluent in a whole lot, including English, but
Not a proper
yeah,
polyglot, but multilingual.
yeah, I that's another thing I really enjoy about going to other countries is like experiencing the languages and the cultures as well,
Oh,
which is I
100%.
I love how I'm saying that as like a secondary side note to the foods. Most people be like, "Oh my god, the languages and the histories and the cultures," and I'm just like, "The snacks." I'm like, "Yo, where the snacks at, dude?" Like, um,
Hey, luckily for a lot of cultures, food is how you reach people. I can only speak for Mexico, but if you
true,
like Mexican food, you'll learn about Mexican culture. Like we can be homies.
true, true. I mean, it is undoubtedly one of, I think, the if there is a trifecta of, like, language, culture, and blank, it's food. So it's
Yeah,
not it's not like it's a totally separate thing. I just yeah, it's
properly.
funny, but I could literally go to a place, like, I'd be happy if I flew to a country for one day only, and I had you blindfolded me from here to the if I knew this was gonna be if I knew that without a doubt this was the absolute factual truth,
Yeah.
you could blindfold me from here to the dankest restaurant in that city, just the bombest, craziest restaurant in that city. If I knew that that was actually the case, you could blindfold me from the plane to the restaurant. I could sit down and eat. You could blindfold me back to the plane, knock me out on the plane. I'd wake up back home and I'd be happy with that. I'd be like, yeah, I did it. I did Lithuania. Like I
Right.
did whatever it is. Like, um,
Experience gained.
that's how much I love eating, dude. You know what I'm saying? I love snacking, bro.
Well, it is
Whatever.
very fitting that your personal social media handles are the truffle gouda because it is indicative of
Truffle
who you are as
Gouda.
a person.
Yeah, dude. Yep, that's absolutely right.
You eat world food the way that people unlock video game characters.
Basically, basically, that's how I travel. I don't need to go out and see a million things or whatever. I like to, but in the event
Yeah.
I don't get to, like, as long as I got
As long as you
some
eating good.
lowdown, as long as I got that good, you know what I'm saying? As long as I got that real stuff, then I'm happy.
Just that little bit of gouda.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't need to be anything crazy. It doesn't need to be what you're most known for. Doesn't need to be whatever. Just like, the homie on the street, right? What's his ribs? Like, for
Right.
me, like, me, that's ribs. Like, I'm not eating ribs every Tuesday, right? But like, if I'm like, man, I really want to, what I'm saying? I'm trying to eat. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to
Right.
have me a good time tonight. Like, I'm gonna get some ribs. Like,
Right.
that's like my thing. So like, and that's not what necessarily that Americans are known for, I guess, right?
No,
Like,
but
some
it
parts of
is.
America. America's tough
Yeah.
because it's a huge country, but
Right. In the
ultimately
South, ribs are,
speaking,
they're ribs.
but even then in the South, I feel like it's more like brisket or like something
Barbecue.
else,
Yeah.
like barbecue in
We
general,
got
like
the
ribs.
meats, bro. We got the
E
meats.
exactly, right, but but whatever, it's not necessarily the most famous thing, but, like, what's that dude's ribs right there? Like, old
Right.
old Joe Schmo walking down the street in this random country, what's his ribs where you give it to him, he's like, "Oh, yo, it's been a couple months, but I'm stoked about eating this right now," like,
Right.
it's what I like to chow down on. Those are my ribs, like,
What
whatever
the
that is in a
locals eating,
country.
man.
Yeah, if I get that one thing in every country, mm, I think you know what? Like, if I had you put a gun to my head to make a bucket list, one item. I'm gonna take a big sheet of paper and it's gonna just be one item in one
But
box. And it's
with
gonna be eat, eat, eat whatever every country in the world's respective version of ribs is. You know what I mean? Just
well,
that's it.
that's a phenomenal way to put that. As our time is indeed drawing to a close, cheers to a
Hmm.
new album, cheers to a new tour, cheers to
Thank you.
a world of foodie experiences for you. Um,
Yes.
are there any closing remarks, statements, and or shout outs you would like to give?
Um I mean, this is the part where I just love to remind everybody, like, we're going on tour, or by the time you hear this, we might be on tour already. I'm not sure, but I just know that basically all the way May through June, we're gonna be on the road throughout the U.S. The album is on May 12th, I believe, and
I think so.
we have new music coming out like every 2 weeks almost until then. So go go check out the new stuff. Let us know what you think. Go follow us on social media to follow the journey on tour. If you can come out to tour, please do so. And if not, follow us everywhere else, and we'll show you what it's like to be on the road. And
Yeah.
can't wait. Stoked.
And I think
Stoked.
this is the round worth making. I'll say I've followed Arizona from before it was Arizona, and this is the tour that I'm going to. So if I'm going, y'all got to be going.
Hey, yo, come through. It's gonna be crazy.
Pull up. All right, we will close out with the newest single. Would you like to introduce it? Any?
Yeah. Die for a Night is the new single. It is a jam. This is one of the really fun ones that we have on the album. It's also one of like the last little uh, you know 2-3 meter slide into the album. So go stream this one and have fun until we get the album out in a couple weeks.
Well, thank you again so much for being here, Zachary Charles, lead singer of Arizona, and all of the aforementioned accolades. Uh, Thank you for being here. And
Thanks
thank
for having me.
Yeah, of course. This has been Podcast with a K, and I'm your host, Karla with a K, and we will see you next week with new nonsense and new guests. Any songs, handles, etc. will be down in the comments below. So, comments, description, whatever. See you guys next week. Bye.